Испания. Год 1936. Именно здесь фашистский зверь впервые попробовал человеческой крови и уже не смог остановиться. Бомбардировщики со свастикой на борту стирали с лица земли непокорные города, такие как Герника, а западный мир молча наблюдал за приближением катастрофы. Они не пройдут, сжав руку в кулак, ответил испанский народ, принявший на себя первый удар фашизма. Они не пройдут, твердили антифашисты, которые со всего мира ехали на помощь борющейся Испании. Интербригады показывали примеры доблести и героизма на полях сражений.
El ejército del Ebro, rumba, 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 la. El ejército del Ebro, rumba, 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 la. Una noche el río pasó, ay Carmela, ay Carmela.
I'm going to Nova Russia to be with those who believe dignity and honor and how to live free. I'm going to stand beside them till the very end. Gonna burn my money, make some new friends. Well, I'm from the U.S., but the U.S. is wrong. And I'll do more to write it than just write this song. 'Cause this is Armageddon, and we all choose our side. The children of the future, those who have died. I'm going to Nova Russia to be with those who believe in dignity and honor and know how to live free. I'm going to stand beside.
That's the physical side of the battle, but there's another side to this battle also that you have morphed into, which is as an information warrior. You've transformed, metamorphosed into, a spokesperson and a humanitarian aid worker. Tell me about that changeover. How did you make the decision, or was the decision made for you? Or
when I joined the Essence of Time unit, they were a section of the Vostok Battalion back in January of 2015. And I did most of my fighting with them as a member of Vostok. And then in late May, Sud Vremeny was transferred to Han Battalion, which is the most elite Spetsnaz unit of the Novorussian Army. At that time, the commander of Han Battalion, he sat me down and he said, look, you're a good soldier, and I am a good soldier. But he said, what you can do with an RPG or with a Kalashnikov at the front, Kalashnikov can reach 400 meters, your RPG can reach 900 meters. But he said, if you will do information work, your words will be your bullets, and they can reach all the way around the world, just like we are right now, just like I'm talking to the American people via your podcast, which I really appreciate, by the way. So this is what I do now, because the whole idea of winning this war is to stop this war, and that's by stopping the U.S. support of the Ukrainian Nazis and terrorists in Kiev. And the only way that can really happen is if the American people stand up to their government and say, to this parade of clowns that's running for president this year, and if people say, hey, look, I'm not going to vote for anybody that supports the Nazis and terrorists in Kiev. And if enough people will say that, write their presidential candidate and say, look, man, you can't support these Nazis or I won't vote for you, then we can stop this war. And that's the whole idea, is to stop the war. Stop the civilians from getting killed, stop the good soldiers, the brave volunteers of the Novorussian Army. Most of these, there are international volunteers here from all over the world, but the vast majority of the people here are people, who live here. They're defending their own homes, their own families from Nazis that kidnap young teenage girls off the street and rape them to death or harvest their organs. And that's what's happening in the southeast part of Ukraine that's under fascist rule right now. That literally is happening. So these people are defending their families, their children, their parents from, basically Nazis and cannibals. And there's no way they're going to surrender. There's no way they're going to retreat. It's like the Alamo. They're going to stand and die. But even though we're outnumbered 10-1, we've got the truth on our side, and we've got the courage of our convictions. So, the Ukrainian army, there's 200,000 of them along the front, but 150,000 of them don't want to be there. There's probably 50,000 Pravi sector and Azov battalion psychopaths who, they're just basically criminals that, they give them a machine gun and a couple of grenades and say, go do anything you want to Russian-speaking people. And so that's what they do. But most of the people in the Ukrainian army don't want to be here. They don't want to fight their own brothers, their own people.
Yeah, they've been conscripted into the army, and government's forcing you to fight, and that is not a highly motivated fighter usually. So you're much more motivated when you're fighting for your own homeland and so forth. What about support from the Russian side of the border? Are you getting more direct support from them? Do you think that's in the offing at any point?
Right now, we get a lot of support from the people of Russia, a lot, especially humanitarian aid, stuff like that. I know Essence of Time, it's a Russian organization. We have chapters all over Russia and actually all over the world, including Europe and the United States. Especially in Russia, they have like a program. It's like school children of Russia helping school children of Donbass. And, they send truckloads of textbooks, pencils, pens, paper, notebooks, school uniforms, stuff like that. And Soup Remedy helps distribute that. I've done that several times myself, and it's a very satisfying part of my job. I love to do that. People of Russia send a lot of humanitarian aid. The government of Russia sends a fair amount too. It would be not realistic to say that every bullet that's ever been fired in Donbass came from Ukrainian army depots. But I can say this without question, having been here for a year, having been in the army for a year, which I still am in the army, even though I do humanitarian and information work now. There are no Russian military units here. There's no regular Russian army here at all. There's a fair amount of Russian volunteers, but, just as if the state of Texas decided to say that all Spanish-speaking people could now be killed or treated as slaves, you would have a lot of Mexican volunteers that would come across the river to help protect them. And it's the same here in Russia, in Nova Russia. There's a lot of people from Russia that have come here to volunteer and to help out. But there is absolutely no official, or even covert Russian military presence here.
Yeah, that's one of the questions that everybody has over here is,
and this thing about, the government saying that, it was a Russian invasion or something, that's completely BS. That's the opposite of the truth.
What about, I know Russia annexed Crimea.
No, they didn't annex Crimea. What happened was, hold on, let me explain exactly what happened there so we get it straight. Russia had a contract with Ukraine for the Sevastopol naval base. There were 20,000 Russian soldiers that were allowed under this contract with Ukraine to be there. When the phony coup d'etat of Maidan in Kiev happened, the people in Crimea said, we're not going to live under Nazis. The Russian soldiers that were there completely legally and, under a treaty with Ukraine simply said they surrounded the Ukrainian military bases and said the Ukrainian army is not going to come out here and intimidate these people while they have a referendum, a vote on whether they want to be with Russia or with Ukraine. And the people of Crimea voted over 90% to go to Russia. That was a legitimate vote. Jimmy Carter was there. He said it was legit. Every international observer that was there that was honest said it was legit. And here's the thing, man. This is really the most telling point, is that 75% of the Ukrainian army soldiers that were in Ukraine, or that were in Crimea, they were offered the choice to either leave and go to Ukraine, or they could join the Russian army. And 75% of the Ukrainian soldiers there joined the Russian army.
Yeah, when I said annex, what I was that after the referendum and people chose that path, that then Russia welcomed them in and said, "Yeah, okay, you want to be part of Russia, you're part of Russia now."
Yeah.
What about similar situation in Donetsk, in Donbass? If the population had a referendum and said, "We want to be part of Russia," would Russia? Do you think Russia would accept them and annex them the same way?
Well, I think we're going to have that vote this year, and I hope that they will. I hope that they will, because there's really not enough. I mean, the DNR and the LNR are both they have very strong economies. They have very strong political support from the people here, but they really do not have the ability to become their own republics. And so, I mean, realistically, I think that the vote will come down this year and the people will vote to join the Russian Federation. Vladimir Putin has said recently that he is not going to allow the Russian-speaking people of southeast Ukraine to be eaten up, and those were his words, by Ukrainian nationalists. And literally, these banderistas, these Ukrainian Nazis, they say the people that speak Russian, the Russian ethnic people, are subhumans. They are like livestock, and just like you can beat your mule or just like you can kill your cow, they say that that's what they can do to Russian-speaking people. So the Russian-speaking people here are never, ever, ever going to submit to something like that. I mean, it's literally, it's just the same as what the Nazis were saying, about Jews and about Russians and stuff, and it ain't gonna happen. It just ain't gonna happen. So since the little republics here really don't have the full ability to become their own countries, I think that the most likely and probably best scenario that can be hoped for will be that we'll have a vote and then we'll become part of Russia too.
So that conversation is currently ongoing in Parliament about that?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
And could you estimate any timeline when you say that it might happen
Well,
sometime this year?
I think there's going to be a big vote coming up in probably the next 2 or 3 months, because the vote was actually scheduled for last October, but it was canceled because part of the Minsk agreement was that the DNR and the LNR would not hold elections without being cooperation from the Ukraine Kiev government. And so in order for us to uphold our obligations under Minsk 2, those votes were canceled. However, the Ukrainians have not in any way upheld their obligations of the Minsk agreement. So it's, it's kind of just a joke, not worth the paper that it's written on anymore, when only one side adheres to it and the other side does whatever they want, which is the case now. So I think pretty soon we're just going to say, okay, we're going to go ahead and have these elections, and the Minsk agreement that the Ukrainians don't pay any attention to is not going to stop us either.
Just one last thing before we sign off for today, which is, our focus on the diner, which is basically industrial civilization collapse and energy issues. We see all of these battles through that lens as resource wars of sorts, and
Sure.
that there's a lot more going on than just the political battles of fascism versus communism, although it manifests itself that way on the political level, so that's a very important aspect of it. But what would you say the awareness is of both the soldiers that you fight with and the population at large about resource depletion issues, the fact that energy is becoming more scarce, and that just the lifestyles that they're living are probably not supportable in the long term?
Well, it's really been very educational for me here over the last year. I mean, of course, in the center of the city, people live kind of like in the West, but just as soon as you hit the suburbs, everybody's got a garden. There's a lot of wood burning stoves, coal burning stoves still that heat people's houses here. People here can survive on 1/20th of what an American can survive on, and they can survive good on it here. I mean, the people here, they're not preppers; they're already prepared, bro. Like out at the airport, we would go into these bombed out houses and go down in the basement, and the basement would be full of compote, like fruit juice, pickled tomatoes, pickled pickles. Everybody has chickens and pigs and stuff like that. I mean, this is really and it always has been, it's a very self-sufficient area here already. And, and of course, if there's a big industrial collapse worldwide or something, it's going to be tough on everybody. But the people here are way, way, way more prepared than just from natural living, the way they live here. They're more prepared than even a lot of preppers, in the United States, much less, just the regular citizen that, goes to McDonald's and the supermarket and doesn't even have a flashlight in their home. People here, they know how to get around in the dark. They know how to survive, they know how to grow their own food. They don't need a lot that they can't get for themselves already. So it's really, it's a very admirable and sustainable way of life here for most of the people here, many of the people here. And I've learned quite a bit about it over the last year here. It's been very educational. And of course, people in the United States, if it comes down like it probably is going to here, not before too long, so many people there are just going to be, they're just going to be doomed because they have nothing. And they're, and they have no concept of how to survive, for 1 week if the grocery store doesn't have anything on the shelves. When I first got here a year ago, it was like that. The grocery stores didn't have anything on the shelves. But it's gotten so much better than then. But people, they still made their way through. They still survived. People that live on the 10th floor of an apartment building, if the electricity's turned off, they walk up 10 flights of stairs and they use a candle or they use a flashlight. They make some soup out of some bean soup or something, and it lasts them 2 or 3 days. When I was in Nizhny, the Ukrainians kept bombing the water plant, so there was no running water in most of that town. But you know what? Most of the houses, they had a well in the yard, man. And I'm talking about from the fairy tale with the bucket on a chain that you roll down and then roll back up, man. And that's actually how we got our water when I was a year ago in Nizhny. Was from wells.
Well, and that still having some of the more primitive methods of accessing water and accessing your own food and stuff, that is probably one of the most important things. And as you mentioned, an advantage that places that were never really quite completely got on the industrial bandwagon will have an easier time if they have to go back the other way. You mentioned power blackouts and so forth. How often do you see those in central Donetsk? Have you experienced
very rarely. I don't think, maybe 1 or 2 in the last 6 months, and only for a couple of hours. Sometimes, and this is another interesting thing about the way they do things here, the hot water in Donetsk, everybody doesn't have their own hot water heater in their apartment. The city of Donetsk provides hot water. They have like a big central boiler. And so, there's another pipe that goes to the center of the water plant, and they heat the water there. And and it's 100 times more efficient than everybody having their own hot water heater. Sometimes, say maybe once every week or 10 days, there won't be any hot water for maybe half a day or something. There's always cold water. But sometimes they have problems with the hot water heaters, citywide. Electricity is always on. Cold, fresh water, which takes a little getting used to, but it's certainly cleaner than the water in Flint, Michigan. But, you can drink it. Most people they do drink a fair amount of bottled water here. And if you drink the tap water, it's usually for tea or coffee or something. So you boil it first. I've drank plenty of it straight out of the tap and straight out of the wells. I never got sick from it.
So it's pretty decent. What about fuel availability, gasoline for the vehicles?
Gasoline, sometimes you'll see lines for gasoline. There's a lot of vehicles here that run on compressed gas, natural gas, propane. And the propane, there's always propane. Sometimes gas will be, it'll be like, it's hard to find gas today. And then like 2 days later, there'll be plenty. But they don't, even when it's scarce, they don't gouge the prices. It's not like in the States, when you see, and you can see a 20 cents a gallon price jump, overnight or something like that. The prices stay the same. Sometimes they don't have as much of it as people would like, but generally, and it's been such an improvement since a year ago. There's no traffic jams here, but there's plenty of cars, everything from, Russian Ladas to Porsches on the streets here in Donetsk today. And public transportation is also excellent here. Excellent. It costs 6 rubles, which is about 10 cents. You can ride all the way across town and back for 10 cents. There's no traffic jams when it's rush hour. The buses get a little bit crowded. You know, there'll be like maybe 40, 50 people on a bus, you know, that has like maybe 30 seats, and then there'll be another 20 people standing. The women of Ukraine, and particularly Southeast Ukraine, are legendary for their beauty. So if you get stuck getting squeezed up on a bus during rush hour, you know, you got a 50-50 chance that you're going to get squeezed up next to a beautiful girl, so it ain't all that bad. The way the government here is run for the benefit of the people here. And it ain't perfect. I'm not saying it's perfect, but it's a lot different from in the States, where it's run for the benefit of the corporations to the detriment of the people. Zaharshenko, the mayor of Donetsk, I have great respect for, I have great appreciation for. They are doing a great job, and their job is to take care of the people here, not the rich guys, not the corporations, but the people, and they're doing a great job of that. There's no homeless people in Donetsk. There's no people that have their electricity turned off because they can't pay their bill. There's no people that are starving. You know, sometimes you'll see guys like at a bus stop or something, you know, I mean, they might be like an alcoholic, or some guy that lost a leg, maybe not in the war, but before the war or something, you know, somebody disabled, something like that. And the government tries to help them, but sometimes you'll see them and they just stand there with the cup, you know, and people come by and, you know, drop a few rubles in or something like that. It don't take much to live here, and there's nobody starving. There's no prison industrial complex here. They don't give you a ticket if you're not wearing your seatbelt or talking on your cell phone while you're driving. And actually, the drivers are a lot better here than they are in America too. There's a lot less traffic accidents and stuff like that. It's pretty educational, man. I think the more people in America know about the way we do things here. I mean, everything from getting water from a well to growing your own garden to the way the cops and the government are, and the way, you know, neighbors treat each other here, the more they'll like it. And I think they'll find it very educational and, you know, very useful, especially if SHFT in the States. They can learn a lot.
Well, that is definitely an interesting information. I hope to get a lot more, and perhaps a chance to talk to some of the local
and you know, that reminds me, if people want some more information, they can check out my website, russelltexasbentley.com. I've got a lot of stuff written there, a lot of pictures of what we've been doing. You can just Google me, or, you know, check me out on Facebook or YouTube. I've done a lot of videos, a lot of writing. You know, just Russell Bentley, you know, on Google. RussellTexasBentley.com is my website. They want us, you know, if they have the ability and they want to contribute to the humanitarian aid work that we're doing here. There's a lot of work that needs to be done here. A lot of good people that have, you know, innocent people that have suffered from this war that was created and started by the United States. A lot of ways. Just get a hold of me. My name's Russell Bentley. Just look me up on Google. You'll find there's a lot of stuff about me these days.
Yeah, there definitely is out there. And we will also feature, you know, some of your stuff on the diner as time goes by here. Provide a few links over to your site so that it's fairly easy for the diners to go over there and visit that information set. And
I appreciate that. I'm a diner too.
Yeah, okay. Well, you got to show up in the diner forum to be a real diner and get into some arguments with some of our diners. They'll love that.
Oh, well, I think I'm going to do that then.
All right. Well, I'll give you the information on how to do that after we go off the air. So, anyway, thanks again to Russell Bentley, Russell Texas Bentley, fighting in Donetsk on the information warrior level these days, but going back out to the front tomorrow, I understand. And we wish him luck, staying safe, and all the rest of that. And that's all the Doom. This time until next time, here on the Doomstead Diner. Later, diners.
Russia, you those who believe dignity and honor, know how to live free. Gonna stand beside him till the very end. I'm gonna burn my money, make some new friends. No Nazis in Donbass, better leave us alone, or all you're gonna leave here will be your guns and your bones. I'm going to Nova Russia to be with those who believe dignity and honor, know how to live free. I'm gonna stand beside them to the bitter end. I'm gonna burn my money, make some